Hello and welcome to another Project Falcon Punch current conversation video. I'm your host Dan, and with me today I have my friend Andy.
Hello.
Today we are discussing the No Time to Die film, latest James Bond film. Reason why, I know we don't often do films on this channel, so I know this is a bit out of the ordinary, but as you might be aware, Andy, I'm a big James Bond fan. In fact, I think the most popular video on this channel is the top 10 James Bond games, so I'm a pretty big James Bond fan, so I've been looking forward to this film for a long time, as have you, I'm assuming.
Yes, to be honest, I'm a big Bond fan, but obviously I'm not as big of a Bond fan as you. Well, I like the films a lot more than the games. I haven't enjoyed the games for some time, so I don't know. I find it hard to play through certain games now. Because I even saw a video the other day of someone playing through Nightfire, and I remember how good of a game that was, but I don't think I could play through that now.
Too old for you now, is it?
Yeah, I think it's just too gone past it now.
Well, I mean, we haven't had a good James Bond game in over a decade, really, because the last game was Legends in 2012, and that was terrible. But we're getting a new IO game from IO, aren't we, for the Hitman people? So who knows? That might actually be pretty good.
To be honest, I didn't mind the Quantum of Solace game.
Yeah, the Quantum of Solace game was pretty good. That was by Treyarch, the Call of Duty people.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I mean, it basically was just built on the COD engine.
Yeah.
And it just catered for Bonds, but that wasn't too bad.
So what we're going to be doing is we're talking about the film to start with, so this will be a spoiler-free discussion to begin with, but then we'll move into spoilers afterwards, and then we'll finish it off with maybe like a ranking of the Daniel Craig era Bond films as well, just to top it off at the end. If you don't want to hear any spoilers, then we'll let you know when we start talking about it. There'll probably be like some timestamps to know what parts you want to be listening to. But yeah, we'll just go straight into the main our main thoughts, I guess, on No Time to Die. Andy, what did you think of the film?
I really enjoyed it. I've seen it twice. I went on
Thursday.
I went on Thursday and watched it. I saw it in the IMAX, and then I went on Saturday and watched it the non-IMAX. It's really weird. I think I don't watch films in IMAX too often, and I would actually have to say, if you're going to watch a Bond film, definitely watch this one on IMAX, because there was a big difference between the two. Because I know in previous Bonds, they've always been upscaled to IMAX, whereas this one was actually filmed with IMAX cameras. So I mean, I don't know how big of a difference that really makes, but I really, really enjoyed it. It's got everything, I think, in this Bond film. Bond's generally an emotionless person. In all the previous ones, they've never really shown much emotion, and this one he actually has emotion in it, so it kind of was quite different. Yeah, there's Bond films.
There's parts where Daniel Craig is actually kind of acting, rather than just being a stoic sort of, typical Bond.
And cheesy. There's actual some kind of emotion from him, and I like the fact as well that they actually, for once, have kind of just carried on a story. Rather than just being linear films that just, once that film's over, that's it. No Bond Guild ever returns. It's just done, dusted. It's just the same Bond or a new Bond, depending on what version we're jumping to.
That can work and can't work, because I know a lot of people that haven't watched any of the Craig films, or Bond in general, and I'll be like, oh, so I'm interested in this No Time to Die. Should I watch it without seeing the others? And I'm like, I mean, you probably can, because it is fairly self-contained, but at the same time, there's a lot of characters and events that have happened in previous films that really sort of are tied into this one as well. Like Blofeld, like Madeline Swan, characters from the previous film that if you hadn't seen Spectre, you'd probably be slightly lost, or at least you wouldn't have the same emotional connection with those characters. Even though Spectre, not particularly great film, it's okay. I liked it. We'll get to, I guess, that towards the end of the video when we do the ranking. But I just think that as a film on its own, it's pretty good. But as a overarching sort of final to Daniel Craig's era, I think I found it incredibly satisfying. Won't talk about the ending just yet, but I'm unsure about the ending at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's the thing as well. When films come to an end, sometimes the ending can be a letdown. The last film, the end of an era. But I actually felt like this was quite a good send-off.
Yes, I agree. Without again spoilers, what do you think of Safin, the main Bond villain from Rami Malek played?
See, I did like him. I mean, I know you were kind of on the fence a little bit with how much he was in it and bits like that, but I did like him. I thought he was a good Bond villain. He kind of has that mystery to him, a bit like what Christopher Waltz had a lot of the time up until Spectre.
Yeah, true. The reason I think that Rami Malek did as good of a job he possibly could, but I just think that you have him at the beginning and then you have him at the end, and he's not really in much of the film otherwise. And then by the time you see him at the end, I had no real connection to Rami Malek's Safin character. Like I didn't feel that threatened by him. I just was like, oh yeah, I guess he's the villain now, right? Because they were trying to tie in so many loose ends from the previous films, it made some of the newer characters, like, the new 007, I forget her name now, she wasn't in it, I think, as much as she could have been, and same with Anna Diarmas as well, like her character, really, really cool sequence that she was in, I really love that sequence.
Yeah, I really wanted to see more of her, to be honest. Yeah. I did quite enjoy her performance in it.
Yeah, same. And I just think that because of them trying to tie in so many loose ends from the previous films, like some of the newer aspects of this film, I was like, I just kind of wish there was more of that. I mean, overall, I think it was a great film, and I think it was honestly worth the wait.
Yes, most definitely. Like, obviously, we've been waiting 2 years that this film's been delayed?
I mean, it was originally supposed to be coming out, I think, in April 2020, so it's been delayed for 18 months. But I mean,
almost 2 years.
But yeah, they revealed the title like 2 years ago. Like, it was in 2019 when they revealed it. So yeah, long time waiting. It's been 6 years since Spectre came out, so that's a long wait between Bond films, especially Bond films with the same actor.
Well, this is the thing. Like, when on the way back, we was talking about it, and I was trying to think. I'm pretty sure there's been as many of Marvel films as there has in the last couple of years or few years as there have been Bond films in my lifetime.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I think that shows you how rare Bond films are.
Yeah, you think, okay, yeah, so if we actually do the maths here, I'm pretty sure there was one or two from Timothy Dalton.
Because I was born in 98, and I think...
you weren't born in 98. You weren't born in 98.
Sorry, 88. Because his second one was License to Kill, wasn't it? Was that his one?
License to Kill was his second, which was, I think, Living Daylights was the first one. License to Kill was 89, I think, that came out.
Yeah, and Living Daylights was 87, so if you count from A License to Kill onwards...
Yep, so that's 1 from there, 4 from Pierce Brosnan, and now 5 from Daniel Craig, so that's 10.
It's 10, and then you think about how many Marvel films have been, in the last 5-6 years?
There's been 10 in the last year.
So like, it just shows you how rare Bond is, and I think that's why Bond films have that level of kind of fan base.
Oh, definitely. Like, when Casino Royale, I was so pumped for Casino Royale for that coming out, and then when Quantum came out 2 years later, I was like, just because it was only 2 years later. Whereas, like you said, 6 years. There's a massive gap between the films, and we'll maybe speculate on where we think the franchise is going to go afterwards. But have you got any closing comments on the non-spoiler section?
I mean, if you haven't seen the other Bond films, I'd still go see it. I mean, it's definitely worth a watch. I mean, like you say, you can get away with watching it. Like, it's not a huge disadvantage if you haven't seen any of the other films, or if you haven't seen Spectre, or if you haven't seen Skyfall, if you've seen bits of other ones. I mean, you can easily get away with it, and it's definitely an enjoyable watch. But then I'll say also, if you do want to watch it, then binge out on the other ones.
Yeah, I mean, you could, if you really need to watch any, I'd say probably watch Casino Royale and then, I guess, Spectre. They're the only two you probably need to watch if you want to know everything that's in this film. They don't really touch on anything from Quantum. There's barely really anything on Skyfall other than, like, maybe M. Which, speaking of M, I really like the little...
Yes.
They had the nod, obviously, to Judi Dench. They had the picture of Judi Dench there. Maybe this is slightly spoilers, but whatever. There's a picture of her, and then you had the picture of the old M from, like, the Roger Moore era. I forget which actor it was.
I can't remember what his name was, but yeah, he was, like, on there as well, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, I like those little nods. And people could be like, oh, how does that make any sense in terms of the lore? But it fucking doesn't matter. It's just a nod to the actor. Like, don't think too deep into it, whatever. Yeah, I guess we move on to spoilers because that was kind of semi-spoiler. But, like, the main thing... I did not see this coming before walking into the film. James Bond has a kid. What?
Yeah, I know. Even I wasn't expecting that. And even like in the film when she says it's not his, I was a bit like, maybe it's not. I was like, maybe it's just one of those kind of double bluffs.
Yeah. Initially, when the kid appears, I was like, oh, okay, this is Bond's kid. Oh wow, they're doing this, aren't they? And then when she's like, it's not yours, and she was quite adamant, like, it's not yours. I wanted Bond to be like, okay, whose is it? And I thought that she was going to say it's mine. I'd be like, oh, okay. Like, she's just being very coy about that. But like, James didn't press into like asking whose kid this was. But the more it was going along, and like, yeah, they're going through the jungle area, and he's protecting her, and it's like, whether it's not his biological kid, I think that this is now his kid, is what I was getting at. And then as it was going further along, and I like the way they drop it in. It's like, was it between Safin and Madeline, I think they had that conversation where all of a sudden he just sort of briefly mentions of like, oh yeah, and he says something about, oh, and this is James's kid, and she just sort of nods. Like he doesn't even like ask her. It's just in the conversation. And it's just like sort of, it's just briefly mentioned in conversation, not like a big. There's no like massive drop of, oh my god, this is Bond's kid, because even for him, he doesn't like have that moment. Like he gradually realizes, which I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, because I mean, even then, even when like obviously she says no, when he's then with Saffron. He's just saying your kid. It's just like it's not like it's not like it's a reveal. It's just like it's a casual conversation between the two of them. It's just like, oh, okay. It's just like Bond's just going with the flow and just being like, okay, it is my kid then. And he's almost like he's just playing like a poker face. Yeah.
And then I guess, do we want to go straight into the ending, like the fact that he dies? James Bond dies.
And I definitely think that is the biggest shock, because obviously that's never happened. Bond has never died.
And I'm not sure how I feel about that. Like, in terms of the way the film is done, it makes sense. Like, he gets infected by this virus thing. He can't get off the island quick enough. Like, he wouldn't be able to see his Madeline and his kid. So that makes sense in the sort of sense of the film that he would die there. But as James Bond, like the whole James Bond is invincible. That's always like it's a cliche of the characters. You could maybe say, broke new ground, whatever. Like he's got a kid and he dies. But that's one thing as a Bond fan, I can't wrap my head around if I actually like it, because the whole point of James Bond is he's always supposed to be able to get out of that pickle, and maybe be like, it subverts expectations, and it like I say, it works in the sense of the film. But as a long-time Bond fan, I'm very torn on the idea of killing him. Yes, alright, we knew this was going to be Daniel Craig's last outing regardless, but before going into this film, I thought they were going to do a Dark Knight Rises and style ending where it's like, he goes and saves the world, everyone thinks he's dead, but there's a little thing at the end where it's like, his legacy lives on, but he is actually still alive.
Yeah, it's like a happy ending kind of thing. But
how traumatic would that be, though, that he actually does survive and he can't see Madeline and his kid because he can't touch them because of the virus?
Yeah,
that's dark. That would be dark as fuck. But like I thought that's where they were going to go. And even at the end there, when they're in MI6 and they got like they're all drinking and they all like cheers to Bond, they leave the glass on the side. And I'm like, he's gonna cut to somewhere and he's gonna be on a beach somewhere just like cheersing himself or something. I don't know. It's not even like you see him like basically die in the explosion. The explosions are all happening around him and he's just standing there and it's like, okay, I'm pretty sure he dies there. But I still, in a weird way, would have thought it'd be more apt for Bond to somehow get out of that.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and it was like, I mean, when I remember watching it the first time and I was just like, okay, so they've gone this way then. This is a bit of an interesting path, because it's almost kind of like always been that, I know they never say it, but it's almost been like, no matter what, James Bond 007 is more like just a code name. Like his real name's never been like James Bond. It's more of just kind of like that's the cover name almost kind of he gets.
I mean, that is a theory. I don't subscribe to that theory. I've always subscribed to like James Bond is just a person. Like it's not a code name. The 007 is a code name.
Because he always uses his name James Bond, and it's always like the fact that he always uses it, everyone will just be like, well, James Bond, okay, he's the secret agent. It's like, so that's why I've always kind of felt like it's always been like just a code name. It's never actually been his real name. But obviously then this film, like obviously these set of films actually dived into his history and kind of showed that actually he is James Bond. And so that's why, like, now that he's died, it's kind of like, well, if they bring out the next ones, it's like, would they maybe kind of, if he did dive into his history and show his name is James Bond, it could have just been like, well, this is now the next person, it's James Bond 007, with all the other main cast still being in it, the same M, same Moneypenny and stuff like that, same Q, and then just have someone else that comes in as then James Bond 007, this kind of thing. So, because that was the thing, because obviously with that, I think her name was Naomi, wasn't it, her character?
Yes,
name?
That's it, Naomi.
Because obviously she had 007 as her title, so it also shows as well that it's not the name associated with the number either.
No, of course not.
So it is weird that they've killed him, because it's like when they then start off the next actors like films, if they do have the same M and the same Moneypenny, or do they just do like a complete new reboot with new characters? It is a bit weird, like how do they carry on with killing him off and then keeping other characters from that same universe almost? Yeah,
I don't know where they're going to go from here. I really, because it's a franchise, people will be like, oh no, just finish it. They're not going to finish James Bond. They're going to, like, they've been doing these films since '62. They're going to keep doing these until like the world ends. That wasn't a James Bond pun, by the way. But the 007 moniker to me was almost like a lucky number 7. So the idea was that he doesn't die because he's lucky. He's like, he has the lucky number 7. So when he loses that and he gets it back for that last mission, like, which was a weird exchange when you think about it now. Like, okay, why? It's just a number. That was the whole point of the film. But she gives it back to him. She wants him reinstated as 007. I thought this is the film's way of saying now he's a 007 again. He can't die. He can't die because he's 007. If you're 007, you can never die. I just thought that was weird.
In the film, they really do kind of emphasise how lucky 7 is when like he's just standing there, gets shot, and it grazes his shoulder. Mm-hmm. I think there's another bit as well when he walks out of the bar and he's people just shooting around him, just casually walking. It's just like it does show you how lucky he is that it just bullets fly around him and he doesn't really get hurt. To be honest.
Exactly. So I was shocked that they went that route, honestly, and killed him, because after doing that whole scene of like the 007 but getting to your point of what you're saying, like, what do they do? What do they go from here? I think they're just going to reboot it. They're going to reboot it again in like 5 years' time, and it'll be a new James Bond, it'll be a new law or whatever. But I'm going to miss these characters, like you said. I'm going to miss this M. I'm going to miss this Moneypenny. I'm going to miss Naomi. Like, I want to see more of her character, in a future James Bond film.
I can't remember his name, but the guy that played Q, I really liked his...
Q. Yeah, Ben Whishaw, yeah.
I quite liked his Q version as well.
Yeah, same. And I'd like to see more... I want to see him be Q for, like, for the rest of his career, I want to see him like Desmond Llewellyn, I think, is the old actor from the past films. I want to see him like that continue through the films for the next 50-odd years, I just think that they're going to have to reboot it, because unless they do Naomi as, like, she's... because they can just call it 007 whatever title. Like, James Bond is never actually in the titles of any of these films. It's always 007. So they could do that and have her as the new 007, which would be cool, which would be fine. But I know there'd be people like, well, I want James Bond. Like, that's the whole point of these films. But maybe they do like almost like a spin-off. Like, okay, we're going to continue this franchise 007 with this new 007, and it just happens to be this new character that isn't James Bond. I mean, it'd be a bit like start carrying on Batman and not having Bruce Wayne sort of thing.
They could do that, but I don't know if they would, because I don't think there'd be that kind of franchise that do like spin-offs. They'll just keep it as James Bond, and it's about James Bond.
I can't believe I mentioned this film twice now, but Dark Knight Rises, they finished that off with, the new Robin, but it becomes the new Batman, like The Dark Knight Rises. That's the whole point of the way that film ends. I actually like the way that film ends, to be honest. Whatever. I know you like Dark Knight Rises as well, right?
I liked how it ended. I just didn't like how Bane died.
Yeah, that was lame.
that was my biggest gripe at that film.
But yeah, so like, I think that they're just going to finish this. This is the end of this continuity. That's the thing. I'm still so torn, because they've been so adamant that this is Daniel Craig's last outing as Bond. They haven't ever stated of this is the end of this continuity. This is the end of the... I don't know. You think of Daniel Craig, right? He was a fresh start, but they still used the same M. They still had Judi Dench as M. Kind of made no sense, really, when you think about it. But I guess it was just she's just still M. It's a different M. I guess you could look at it in that way. Because every Bond film, from the first Sean Connery until the last Pierce Brosnan, was all supposed to be the same continuity, the same Bond. And then Daniel Craig was the first new start. But they just happened to have the same M.
And also with it as well, because we've obviously the continuity, like with the Q, when he became too old, the original one, to act, he then actually retired in the films and passed that then on to, I think it was R, he was called at that point, wasn't he? John Cleese. And then he then took up the mantle, and they actually retired the actual character and actor. Mm-hmm. And so they did have still that continuity, even though they were changing people across. Like, they kind of did it in the film rather than in the next one. It was just a new character. It was just like a new person.
Yeah, was John Cleese then Q in Die Another Day? Because that was War Is Not Enough.
He then did get, I think, the title as Q in that one.
And he was also, if you ever played Everything or Nothing as well, he was
I did play it, yeah.
He was Q in that as well, which was cool.
Films. Well, I mean, there's another character that kind of dies in the film, which I guess was... I was a bit surprised. But I know he does die in previous Bond films. But again, Felix Leiter. I didn't kind of expect him to die. I kind of thought...
I'll be honest, I was surprised that not more people died, to be honest, because when Felix Leiter appears again, Felix is back, that's cool. I think he was in the trailers, I couldn't remember. But my first reaction was, he's going to go on a mission with Bond, he's going to die.
I just thought they might have actually kept him in this one, purely because it's been the same guy popping up again, whereas all the other ones, it's always different. He dies, and then somehow comes back again.
Sure.
It's just a different actor kind of thing. So I thought this one, actually, they might keep him alive. And because I almost kind of thought maybe he would have been on the last mission, and he would have survived, and Bond died, kind of almost. But obviously he then dies a bit earlier than that.
sort of you talk about the continuing, because people there's been like, oh, do a Jane Bond. And I don't want to go down this whole route of like the gender swap thing, but like it would be kind of funny if it turns out that they cut forward 20 years in the future and it's actually following James Bond's daughter and she's now the new 007, which I think is a bit corny. I think even for James Bond that's a bit corny, especially for Daniel Craig.
I would say it's a bit corny, but like on the kind of whole, because obviously I think they've stated recently, they said that Bond will always be a man, it won't ever be a woman. Yeah. I think they can. And to be honest, this is one of the things about films that kind of I get gripes about when they kind of do this, like they did it with Ghostbusters, where they kind of flipped it and they did a female version, and it I mean I never watched it, but it tanked. And I always feel like it doesn't work if you do that. If you kind of then just replace it and make it a female one, I feel like you have to take it out of that franchise and make them in their own films. If you're going to bring, because there's been like female assassin films, and when they're in their own universe they work, but when they try and copy stuff like
I think that for to be honest, I think I'd never watched the Ghostbusters female one either, but that's because I'm not a big Ghostbusters fan. I think that I have no problem with that at all, is if it's good. I don't mind having a female Ghostbusters. For me, what's wrong with that? It's when you just swap the character for the sake of swapping. Like, okay, we're gonna have Jane Bond. Like, no, do a female 007 if you want to do that. Don't do Jane Bond. That's fucking stupid. Yeah.
It's because
they didn't do when they wanted to make the video games of Indiana Jones. They were like, let's just make our own franchise and called it Tomb Raider. And then Naughty Dog wanted to do their own version of Tomb Raider, so they didn't just do a gender swap of Lara Croft. They created their own character, Nathan Drake. Like, it's like just create your own. If you want to have a female version of something, fine. Like, speaking of Uncharted, Lost Legacy, great game, and that's 2 female leads playing that. But that's not. Oh, let's do a female Nathan Drake. Like, no, we're just going to do.
That's where I think it works when you do it in its own. Like, you can take the same similar story, but then make it its own.
Yeah,
like where Tomb Raider did, where they kind of obviously Indian. I mean, if you kind of look at both of them, they are quite different. They're obviously both kind of treasure hunters in the aspects of things, but they do it in very different ways.
Lara Croft is basically is Bruce Wayne. When you think about it, she has her own mansion. She's an orphan. Like, she's incredibly rich, but she goes on these adventures.
Because like when you say the Ghostbusters, they literally swapped every character for the sake of it. Where they swapped the receptionist for then a male version. They literally just completely counter-swapped every kind of character. It just felt like it's not going to work.
It felt forced. It felt forced. Like, it didn't. I've not seen it, so whatever. And it wasn't. I wasn't out of protest to not watch it. I just had no interest to watch it. Like, it was just didn't care. We'll move on actually now, because I think we're going, I guess, slightly off topic.
Off a bit of tangent.
Yeah, actually no, before we go on to the ranking, if they are going to do a recast, because everyone asks Daniel Craig, like, who's going to be the next one, and he's obviously not going to know, and probably doesn't even really care that much, but who would you want to be the next James Bond? Because they're going to reboot it, right? If they are going to reboot this franchise, they're going to have to start again from scratch. Who's the new James Bond?
Yeah, and I saw a post on Twitter where people put, I think they put 4 people up, and they put Henry Cavill, who I think definitely fits the role of a James Bond. Like, obviously he did Mission Impossible, where he kind of played a CIA agent, but he had that kind of persona. So I think like he would be like a good fit. Idris Elba, I even like this. I think he would be pretty good as a Bond. For
me, like Henry Cavill, he looks the part, but I do think he's going to sound really stupid, but he's way too jacked for me to be James. I mean, whatever. I'm sure he would still work fine. He has that suave sort of like attitude to him. But I feel like Henry Cavill's already played too many characters. He's already, Superman. He's already Geralt from The Witcher.
But the thing is, because I think he's losing the Superman now, isn't he? I don't think he's carrying it on.
Yeah, I don't think he's coming back.
Because I think they're just messing him around. So I definitely think he'll be looking for another big franchise, and I think
true.
Because obviously as well with Bond, notoriously, a lot of the actors start quite late.
Yeah.
So they don't have much time to get films done. Like, I mean, and I feel like as Henry's still quite young, he's got quite a lot of time to get out to do quite a good franchise. And where Daniel Craig was a bit older when he started, and obviously it took a long time to do films. Maybe they did try and squeeze too much into the 5 films and get everything in. Whereas if they did the same thing with like Henry, they could probably stretch it out longer and make a lot of the stories a bit more kind of thicker and kind of like flesh them out properly.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I going on to like say you mentioned Idris Elba. Everyone goes on about wanting Idris Elba. He's that same age as Daniel Craig. So like you just mentioned there, the age thing. I think if you want to recast James Bond, you probably want to go for someone in their like mid to late 30s, maybe early 40s at a push. Because they want to make it as a franchise. Like, as much as I think I would want to see, like, oh, maybe Tom Hardy or maybe whoever else. But even though it feels like a long time ago, it was only 15 years ago that Casino Royale came out and rebooted the franchise. Do we really want another reboot of this franchise again?
Well,
we've already seen the origins.
And I was just thinking about it. I was thinking, if they did do another continuation story, what do they do it about? Because they don't want to do it about Spectre again, because that's obviously just been done. And I mean, obviously, through Bond,
Casino Royale,
Spectre is the main villain throughout organisation for it. So it's like, do they just then maybe go back to just the one film solos and just so they haven't then got to rely on the same character kind of continuing like a franchise? So if Henry after 2 films was like, actually I'm not enduring this, I'm done, so they haven't then got to tie anything up. It can just be like that one film, and then new actor, start another film again.
Casino Royale, I watched it fairly recently. Like, that film, obviously, it's only 15 years old. It holds up fine. Like, it's a great introduction to James Bond. It's a great origin story, and it's a great film still. I think it will still be incredibly rewatchable for years to come. You know, a bit like what they did with the Spider-Man. They rebooted that with the Amazing Spider-Man. That didn't work, so let's try it again with Homecoming. But with Homecoming, it wasn't an origin now. It was like, okay, Peter Parker has been Spider-Man for a year or whatever it was at that point. So I'm wondering if they're going to reboot James Bond, they might reboot it with he's already 007. Because we've already seen the origin of 007 and how he gets the moniker and the code name. Yeah, if it is, here's Tom Hardy, or here's Henry Cavill, here's Idris Elba, whoever, I would like to see it. Okay, here's just another James Bond film. It's a new continuity, but we know how Bond becomes Bond. I mean, even Skyfall delved into like his childhood, which was it Skyfall? Skyfall delved into his childhood, and then Spectre went even further into that of like here's Blofeld, he's trying
to make out that he had relatives and that was still kind of a
okay. Do you know what? Let's move on now to the ranking, because I feel like I want to talk about Spectre. So do you have a ranking in your head of the 5 films?
Kind of.
Okay, we'll start. So what we'll start with number 5. We'll just speak.
I think we're both probably going to agree on number 5.
I think we might even have the same list, to be honest, mate. Okay, so my number 5 is Quantum of Solace. What's yours?
That's mine as well. Like, that film was terrible. Like, if you take that film out, no one's ever going to miss it, and no one's ever going to really remember it. It's
just like I said earlier. People were asking me what films do I watch in preparation for No Time to Die. I would say watch Casino Royale. Probably have to watch Spectre. Watch Skyfall, because Skyfall was great, but just Quantum of Solace, you don't need that film. It was weird at the time because it was I think really the only proper direct sequel that Bond has. There's been a couple of others actually, but like it's very rare that James Bond has a direct sequel that relies so heavily on the previous film. And this, like, it takes place seconds after the end of Casino Royale.
And also, I think wasn't it the shortest as well out of all the Bond?
Yeah, it was really short. And the only thing I remember that film, and I watched it a couple of years ago, I remember the ending of that in the desert and having the villain being left in the desert with a gun, and that was kind of it. And I remember the weird shaky cam, hard cuts of that car chase at the beginning. It's like just jotting around everywhere. None of the action was good in that film.
As well, the ending to that film is so short as well. Mm-hmm. Like literally, like the whole battles bit, it's just literally like, oh, it's over, done. And I didn't really like, is it Olga Kurylenko? Is that her name?
Yes.
I didn't really like her as a Bond film either. I don't think she really has any emotion and was quite dry.
She's better as a possessed robot person like Taskmaster.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that Quantum of Solace is the only bad Craig Bond film.
Yes, definitely.
I know some people. I mean, we'll move on. My number four is Spectre. I don't think Spectre's bad. I think that it's a really good film for the majority of it. The beginning opening is one of my favourite sequences in any of James Bond.
That is amazing! Like
the Mexico Day of the Dead, and it's a one-shot part, and all the buildings are crumbling down. I love that scene.
I mean, when you watch that with like a soundbar or surround sound with like the bass on, that makes sure the floor rumbles so much. That beginning scene with all the buildings blowing up and coming down. It's probably one of the best openings I think to a Bond film as well.
Yeah, I love that. I love that opening. It's just a shame that it delves into, it gets caught in the weeds of, okay, here's a new villain that's played by Christoph Waltz. Christoph Waltz, great actor, like same as you. I think he's a brilliant actor, even though he gets a bit typecast. And then it's like, oh, he's Blofeld. And then when it gets revealed in the film, he goes, I am Ernst Stavro Blofeld to Bond. And in terms of for Bond, like that means nothing to him. Blofeld means nothing. Like what does that name mean to him? Is nothing. But as fans and people who know the legacy of Spectre and Blofeld, you're like, oh, that's Blofeld the whole time. But it was so forced and dumb. It really was like, it felt like how does Han Solo get his name? Oh, his name's Han, and he flies solo. Like fucking, it was that kind of dumb level of forcing the character that you're familiar with into this new continuity. So I guess actually we didn't even really mention how No Time to Die finishes. It was so weird how that film just devolved into a stereotypical Bond villain thing at the end. Actually, we'll get to that in a sec. So, what's your number 4? Was your Spectre as well?
My number 4 is probably going to be Casino Royale, purely because...
Oh, wow! Wow!
Purely because when that film first came out, I didn't like it at first, because it wasn't like the other Bonds. It didn't have the gadgets, it didn't have all the kind of cheesiness that came with like all the previous... It was like you said, I think last night, it felt like it could have been a Jason Bourne film with the way it all first kind of like played out, and I think that's the only reason it kind of comes for. Like, I really do enjoy that film, but I feel like because it was like an origin film as well, it just didn't kind of have, and I think the fact that I didn't like it to start off with, it took maybe a few years. That's why. Like, I mean, to be honest, like all 4 of them are really close in how good they are. Like, it's not like. I mean, like 5 is way out ahead of being shit. Like Quantum of Solace was like freaking throw that in the trash and don't care about it. Whereas then all the other 4 are so close. Like it could, and like to be honest, it's been a while since I've seen them all. So like even if I rewatched through all them all, it could change. But like from what I can remember and how vivid I remember them all, and the way how long it took me to like them originally, I feel like Casino Royale is probably number 4.
Fair enough.
I didn't like the villain in that as much.
The Chief, yeah.
The Chief, he was very, I found, pointless. He didn't seem scary. Like a lot of Bond films, you think you don't want to.
Which is a shame because Mads Mikkelsen is. I love that actor. Like, he's such a good actor.
He is.
And you're right. Like, he was kind of wasted.
He just because he's got the inhaler, and it's just like.
Yeah, if you've got an asthmatic Bond villain, it's always like, well, if we just outrun him, he's going to die anyway.
It was a bit like within Star Wars when they brought out Attack of the Clones and that, when they had
General Grievous
with his little ass coughing, and it's just like you're just taken away from his kind of level of villainous.
Oh, I was going to actually mention Star Wars when you said about like asthma. Like, ironically, Darth Vader, who breathes heavily in a mask, is like one of the most iconic villains of all time.
But I feel like because it's behind a mask, it's a little bit more scary.
Yeah, it's more. Yeah, it's the mystery. Yeah, which. Whereas just speaking of behind a mask, which is kind of scary. My number 3 is No Time to Die. Safin is the weak point for me of that villain of that film. Sorry, because at the beginning, he's behind that mask and he's scary, and then the mask is just more of a symbol, and it's frightening and haunting for Madeline. And then by the time you get to the end, and it's like you're in that big massive island with Bond, and it's just like this feels like it's like all of a sudden. The film realises it needs to tick off all the Bond tropes. It's like, oh, the Bond villain needs to have his own island. He needs to have a missile silo. He needs to have his own virus as well. Let's just put it all here at the end.
This is where I feel like it was a bit of a homage to Dr. No. I know they don't give him that title as Dr. No, but it did feel like it was a Dr. No villain. Yeah,
totally. And we've already spoken about at length about this film. I really loved the No Time to Die. For me, Quantum Solace is bad. Then Spectre's okay, good at some points. Then it's like No Time to Die is really good, and then I think the other 2 films we'll get to, for me, are like the upper echelon.
Oh, okay,
like I don't think. I know you say those 4 films are on like the same level for you roughly. For me, it's like there's a clear divide between Skyfall and Casino Royale, the 2 like 5-star films, and then No Time to Die is a 4-star. Spectre's like a 3.5, and then or 3, and then I'd say Quantum's like a 1 or 2.
I mean, two seems generous for that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Okay, so what's your number 3 then?
See, this one was quite tough. Like, it's definitely a toss-up, but I'll probably go with Spectre's number 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, without obviously giving away number 2 too much, but I do love Christopher Waltz, and I mean, I'm a huge fan as him. As an actor, and I love the fact him being a villain, and how kind of mysterious he was as well as a villain. Again, there was just bits in Spectre that was just a bit of a letdown, like trying to make out that he was like related to Bond was a bit like of a tangent that didn't really need to be done.
Yeah,
like the action sequences in that film are freaking brilliant though.
Yeah, that's people say the Spectre's bad. I'm like, yeah, the story's not great, but like. The action in Spectre is pretty good. So my number 2, go back and forth between these 2 films so much. I feel like I'm still struggling in my head. Like you ask me on any day, like these 2 can change. Right now in my head, Skyfall was my number 2. I've probably got less to nitpick about Skyfall than I have Casino. Because obviously Casino Royale is my number 1 then. But I just think that Skyfall is just, it's like the perfect Bond film. It's got the best Bond villain in a long time. Javier Bardem is truly frightening and scary. That scene where he comes down the elevator and he walks towards all in one take, and it's just like, man, this guy is a fucking great actor, because I am scared shit of him right now. And that whole sequence when they're out on that, the abandoned island, and then there's the underground sequence, the explosion, and then how the film ends with over the ice with M, and how M dies, and it's like, man, that whole film is just so fucking great. I've got nothing. I don't think there's anything bad about that film. That's like a perfect film. For some reason, enjoy Casino slightly more in terms of the origin, and just like you, actually, what you said about how you didn't enjoy Casino, I also didn't like Casino Royale when it first came out. I was coming out of the back of Pierce Brosnan. I love GoldenEye, I love all that era, obviously, other than Die Another Day. And so to go into this more like serious Bond, like Jason Bourne, as you mentioned, I didn't like Casino Royale initially, but over the years I've just grown to absolutely adore that film, and it's like easily top 3 Bond film of all time for me, Casino Royale. So yeah, that's my 5. So what's your number 2?
So my number 2 is also Skyfall, which obviously then that makes No Time to Die my number 1.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, well, that's bold. Do you think that will stay that way if I ask you in a year's time?
I don't know. It could change, to be honest. I think maybe like in a year's time I might have to watch. Well, I think, to be honest, I think when No Time to Die comes out on like Blu-ray and stuff, I might then have to get it and watch through all 5 and then see if my ranking does change still. But like you say, with Skyfall, like it was. The villain's great. I mean, he especially like when he's in the prison cell and he pulls out like his fake little kind of plate, and then he kind of just like freaking terrifying, kind of seeing. Because
he's an ex 00, isn't he? So or an ex agent of some form, and he's like he had to take the cyanide pill to kill himself to not get the information out, and then he didn't actually kill him, and it just destroyed half his face. That's terrifying.
And I feel like that's what makes him good as well, is that fact that he is an ex agent. It's like Bond has met his match.
Yeah. Exactly, and he's there. Like he was on the good side, and because of this horrible trauma that he suffered, and he just got abandoned by MI6 or MI5. I always forget, it's MI6, MI5, or whatever. He defected and he became the bad guy, and I love that aspect of him. He's great.
And then obviously, like you said, with M actually dying was obviously a huge part of that, because obviously again that's never happened in Bond. You've never seen M die in film, so. They usually retire and they get another actor in or something. This franchise has chucked out a lot of kind of different aspects that we've never seen in any Bond films previous. And like with Skyfall again, the action scenes in that are ridiculously good. Like, I mean, with the bit when he's like underground and the underground train comes flying through the tunnel, like even that bit's just like crazy.
See, you talking about, us talking about Skyfall again. I'm like, maybe that is my favourite Bond.
And also, even the theme tune for Skyfall is ridiculous with Adele singing that.
It got overplayed so much, but yeah, like Casino Royale's opening isn't great. I don't think either Quantum's isn't great. Whether or not you like Adele, that song, it got overplayed. But yeah, Skyfall it's kind of iconic, really. I can still hear that song in my head, whereas I can't hear whatever the fuck Quantum of Solace is with it. Was it Alicia Keys and Jack White? Like
yeah.
But
it's again with like Sam Smith. I didn't really like his rendition on Spectre.
Did not like Sam Smith's song either. I like Billie Eilish's No Time to Die. I think that was pretty good.
See, Chris Cornell's is my favourite.
What with Casino Royale?
Know Your Name, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I did like that one actually. I still think Skyfall Adele is probably the best. It evokes more like the most, of like the Shirley Bassey sort of.
Yeah, I mean she does. Yeah, she does have that powerful voice, which was.
I do think the worst one was Spectre, because like they should have used the Radiohead one, but.
It's just weird when they. I mean, like, I know obviously Chris Cornell was obviously one of my favourite ones out of them all, but it is weird when they don't use the film title as the actual song.
Yeah, because I think it's because sometimes it's like how would you force Quantum of Solace into the title of the song?
I don't know. It's, again, that's a very weird title for a Bond film, I find as well. Quantum of Solace,
So it's also shit.
Because to be honest, I don't actually know all the film book titles for the films. But is Quantum of Solace an actual title?
No.
Because I know Casino Royale is, because obviously they did originally do a Casino Royale film with Peter Sellers.
Casino Royale, I believe Casino Royale is the only Bond book.
Oh, okay, because that's the one with
from Craig's era. So from Craig's era, I should say.
Because obviously that original one was done by Peter Sellers as a comedy.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that film from that 50s or 60s. What was it? Yeah.
I don't remember what year it is, but and then obviously I feel like the reason No Time to Die pips it to number 1 is because I know the Bond villain's a bit of a letdown, but it has everything that you don't normally see. Like, it has emotion to it, it has a storyline to it, it has great action sequences, it throws up 2 surprises at the end that you're kind of not expecting. So I feel like it definitely left it on a wow factor.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Maybe, and who knows, I feel like my list will probably change perhaps over the years with the Craig era. Quantum will definitely be bottom. I think Spectre will always stay 4th. I do think No Time to Die will probably stay 3rd, but it could creep up to us. I don't know, like Skyfall, and for me, Skyfall and Casino are like they're up there for me. But I totally get why you like No Time to Die, and I have seen a bunch. It's been quite divisive amongst fans and critics actually. Well, no, critics I think like No Time to Die, but I think fans are very split, mainly because of the ending of killing Bond, which I'm still unsure myself. Anyway, I think we'll wrap it up there because we went pretty long.
Yeah.
I think what I'm going to do with this video, you probably already noticed if you've been watching it, but I'm just going to do some video game Bond games footage, because if I use all these trailers for what we're talking about, I'm going to get flagged. I'm going to get copyright striked so much. So it's probably just going to be.
I mean, at least you can use a bit of quantum-sized video game footage for.
Yeah, I've got. I mean, I know you won't be able, because this is an audio thing that we're recording, but Andy, you can see. But I think I've got Quantum of Solace on PS3.
Oh yeah, it's just a shame they don't really bring out as many games as they do with the films, to be honest. Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, well, like I say, we'll finish it there. Thanks for joining us, Andy.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Been good actually talking about this, because I've been eager to talk to you about this since we watched it last night. But yeah, let us know, people, if you managed to watch it all the way to the end. Thank you, and leave a comment below what you thought of No Time to Die, and also want to hear other people's rankings of the Craig era, because I think that there can be some various lists.
I think you'll be very diverse. I think you get a lot. I think Quantum of Solace will always be at the bottom of most people, but I think all the other 4 will be quite diverse. I think I'd like to think.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm just gonna get slated for my ones.
Fair enough. All right. Okay. Until next time. See you later.
See ya.
I don't know why I waved there, because it's an audio version.